You are good. We are there, Babana. We are there.
Since 2009, when Boko Haram launched its first attack, the terrorist sect has remained a significant security and economic threat to Nigeria. The insurgency, which has cost more than 30,000 lives and displaced millions of people around the northeast region of the country, continue to take new dimensions. The insurgency, which has taken different forms, is becoming more worrisome, with the abductions of school children, which seems to have become the modus operandi of the insurgents. The first widely reported case was in April 2014, when over 200 girls were kidnapped from the federal government girls' college, Chibok, Borno, by Boko Haram terrorists. On February 19, 2018, 4 years after the first one, the terrorist group struck again at another federal government girls' secondary school, this time in the Dapchi area of Bulabulin Unisari local government, Yobe State. That attack led to the death of one of the girls, while the rest were released within a month except Leah Sharibu. Perhaps, seeing how easy and successful their raid was in the first two incidents, the terrorists launched another raid on 11th of December 2020. This time, they took away over 300 students from the boys' secondary school at the outskirts of Kankara, Katsina State. A gang of gunmen on motorcycles attacked the government science secondary school. Thankfully, there was a prompt response by the government, and all the boys were released days after. If you assumed that would be the last, you were wrong. On 17th February 2021, armed men attacked the Government Science College in Kagara, Niger State. A school pupil was killed in that attack, and 27 other boys were abducted. 3 staff members as well as 12 of their relatives were also taken away. As at the time of putting together this report, the government was still in negotiations with the abductors. In yet another brazen raid in the latest of mass abductions targeting schools, bandits stormed the government girls' secondary school in Jangebe, Zamfara State, and left with 317 students on 26 February 2021. Subsequently, there has been a series of other school abductions, particularly in Kaduna. Apart from violating their rights to life and undermining their right to education, a lot of psychological damage is also being done to these vulnerable children. The overall effect is that children in the Northeast are being robbed of their right to education, an essential ingredient for their future and for the development of the Northeast region, which for years has lagged behind other parts of the country. Without urgent action to address these attacks and chaos, the lives of these children could become locked in unending cycles of underachievement and poverty.
We have several of our children that are even afraid of going to school because of the fear of being kidnapped. So for the children now, their memories may be very impaired. Impaired in such a way that they may not even remember the 1, 2, 3 they have learned in the last 6, 7 years.
Wow.
All what will be in their brain is someone will come one day and take us again. They are just growing. And if something that is this traumatic comes to them, it can leave them confused, permanently confused, if care is not taken. Another one is intrusive thoughts. On the streets, we call it flashback. Something will just flash and like, it do happen, especially in traumatic situation. The person will just see it. It may not be, in fact, the flash may not be something similar, but the person will just have something like a jacking. The physical effects could range from sustenance of injury. They may have asthmatic attack, they may have hunger issue during that period. So the physical effects are still there and they are very enormous too. Put all of this together, they affect the child. We need a lot of psychological work out on them. so that we can reorientate them.
Education lifts a nation out of the morass. And the reason Nigeria could have got independence in 1960 was because quite a number of our forefathers, so to speak, the fathers of independence, quite a number of them had good education. So they knew what to do, they knew how to make the case for independence and all that. Right now, there's a lot of kidnapping in northern Nigeria. Already, northern Nigeria is disadvantaged educationally, which is why we have all the quota system that we've had for over 30 years that I know. So there's a disadvantage that has spanned between 3 to 4 decades, and now education has been made scary. Education is now looking like, if you want to die, go to school. When you have desperate situations, desperate measures are called for. People are being kidnapped. School children are being kidnapped. I really do not understand how incapable our defense mechanism has become. Defense and offense. After all, I remember a time when Nigerian Ecomoc forces were sought after everywhere. Well, this is a war where it's a war situation. I think it should be faced like a war.
How can Nigeria avoid a repeat of school student kidnapping? Tackling these challenges will require a strong commitment from the government, along with close collaboration from others, because these attacks have revealed the absence of protection mechanisms in our schools. While there are no 100% safeguards that can completely protect against attacks on schools and the abduction of students, here are a few things Nigeria must prioritize. First, the government should ban its soldiers from using schools for military purposes, so as to avoid such schools being targeted for attacks and destruction. Second, intensify security and improve military deployment to vulnerable spots. The army, police, and other security agencies need to deploy more personnel to schools in the Northeast and review its engagement and allocate personnel efficiently. The police should also recall thousands of their personnel guarding VIPs and reassign them to schools in the troubled region. Third, an early warning and alert system should be put in place to communicate quickly about threats or attacks on schools. These can be achieved by collaborating with schools, government agencies, community leaders, and local councils. Early warnings make it possible for schools to take safety precautions, which could mean either closing the schools temporarily or transferring the students to safer areas. Fourth, schools in the Northeast should consider implementing a number of measures to provide alternative delivery of education. These measures could include changing school schedules and relocating places of delivery of education to places such as homes, community buildings, places of worship, or other community sites. Technology should also be considered here. Fifth, dialogue and negotiation as a strategy to protect education. It would amaze you what dialogues and negotiations can do. It affords the government the opportunity to know what these bandits really want. It could be a step in the right direction because it opens the government up to addressing the structural inequalities that drive people to violence. Issues like poverty, lack of education and opportunity, and probably government mistreatment. The Nigerian government must do all it can to ensure that this recurring tragedy never repeats itself again, and that violent attacks cease to exclude children from accessing their right to education. Studies have shown that insecurity and war have negative effects on children, and these can lead to heightened aggression and violence, revenge seeking, anxiety, depression, withdrawal, sleep disorder, fear and panic. If any child be put through this, then it says a lot about the kind of adults they would grow up to become. For the vicious cycle to be broken, then deliberate efforts need to be put in place to stop these attacks on schools, because no child should have to choose between education and their lives.